There's a moment every year when gemstones don't get chosen for what they are, but for how they feel. Under warm lights, surrounded by music, wrapping paper, and expectation. Some stones seem brighter, richer, more meaningful than they ever will again. At Christmas, buying decisions aren't logical. They're emotional. We choose color over durability, story over structure, impression over reality. And most of the time, that feels perfectly fine until the season passes. Weeks later, under daylight, without the lights, the music, or the moment, some buyers quietly realize the stone they loved in December doesn't feel the same in January. This video is not about bad gemstones, and it's not about blame. It's about the 15 gemstones most often associated with post-Christmas regret. Not because they're worthless, but because they were bought for the wrong reason at the most emotional time of the year. Stay until the end, because the number one stone on this list is still being sold every Christmas. Using a comparison most buyers never stop to question. Ranked 15th, dyed howlite, the stone that looked perfect, until the lights came down. On Christmas night, dyed howlite almost always looks like the smartest choice in the room. Under warm holiday lights, its color feels confident. The blue looks rich, the polish feels smooth, and the price feels reasonable. For many buyers, dyed howlite doesn't feel like a compromise. It feels like a win. This stone is often purchased during the most emotional buying window of the year, when gemstones are chosen not with daylight judgment, but with Christmas atmosphere in mind. Soft lighting, shiny wrapping, the quiet pressure of wanting a gift to feel right. And in that moment, dyed howlite performs beautifully. But regret doesn't arrive on Christmas morning. It arrives weeks later, when the stone is worn under natural light, when the vibrant blue suddenly feels flatter, when tiny areas begin to fade, especially near edges, clasps, or points of contact with skin. That's when many buyers realize something they were never told outright. Dyed howlite is not prized for what it is. It's prized for what it temporarily resembles. Howlite itself is a soft, porous mineral, naturally white or gray. Its structure absorbs dye easily, which is exactly why it's so often used to imitate turquoise or other vibrant stones during the holidays. Under controlled lighting, the illusion holds. Under everyday wear, it slowly unravels. This is where the regret forms, not from deception, but from expectation. Buyers didn't expect a stone that would slowly lose its confidence. They expected consistency, permanence, familiarity. And Christmas marketing quietly encouraged that expectation. Dyed howlite is frequently packaged with phrases like "inspired by turquoise" or "turquoise look." Nothing technically false, nothing legally wrong. But emotionally, many buyers later realized they weren't buying howlite. They were buying the feeling of another stone. That feeling doesn't always survive January. The regret deepens not because the stone breaks, but because it changes. Color variation appears, surface dullness increases, and the stone that once felt festive begins to feel uncertain. For many owners, dyed howlite becomes a gemstone they stop reaching for. Not because it's unattractive, but because it no longer matches the memory of how it first appeared. And that's the quiet truth of holiday regret. Not anger, not disappointment, just a small emotional mismatch between expectation and reality. Have you ever owned a gemstone that looked amazing in the store, but felt different once you wore it regularly? If so, comment below with just 3 words: where you bought it, when you realized, how it felt. Real experiences help others buy with clarity instead of seasonal pressure. Dyed howlite isn't a bad stone, but it is often bought for the wrong reason, at the wrong time, under the wrong light. And that's why it earns its place at number 15. Ranked 14th. Low-grade amethyst, the purple that looked royal, only at night. Purple has a strange way of changing under light. In one setting it feels calm and rich. In another, it almost disappears. Few stones experience that shift more dramatically than amethyst during the holidays. At Christmas, purple carries a certain promise. It feels calm, it feels meaningful, and in gemstone form, it feels timeless. That's why amethyst, especially during the holiday season, rarely feels like a risky purchase. Under warm Christmas lighting, even low-grade amethyst can look luxurious. The purple deepens. The facets catch soft reflections. The stone feels closer to royalty than to compromise. In that moment, buyers don't feel like they're choosing less. They feel like they're choosing wisely. But amethyst has a quiet secret that only appears after the holidays. Its beauty is extremely sensitive to light. Low-grade amethyst often relies on artificial warmth to appear rich. Under yellow or amber lighting, like Christmas lights, candles, or indoor evening lamps, the color looks fuller than it truly is. Then January arrives. The stone is worn near a window, or under cool daylight, or in an office with neutral lighting, and suddenly the purple softens. What once looked deep and confident now feels pale. What once felt royal now feels distant. This is the moment many buyers experience their first pause. They don't think, this stone is bad. They think, this isn't what I remember. That gap in between memory and reality is where regret begins. Low-grade amethyst isn't fake. It isn't unstable. It hasn't changed, but the environment has. During Christmas, amethyst benefits from atmosphere. After Christmas, it must stand on its own. And that's where expectations quietly collapse. Many buyers believed they were purchasing a stone that would always carry the same emotional weight it had on Christmas night. They expected the calm, the richness, the presence. Instead, they discovered a gemstone that feels situational. This regret is subtle, and that's why it's common. Amethyst is affordable, widely loved, and culturally safe. No one feels foolish buying it, which means many people don't realize their disappointment until weeks later, when the stone slowly stops being worn. Not because it's ugly, but because it no longer feels special. And that's the key difference between a gemstone that's liked and one that's lived with. If you own amethyst, try this experiment tonight. Look at it once under warm indoor light, then again tomorrow near a window. Did it feel like the same stone? Comment same or different below. I read every response. Low-grade amethyst earns its place at number 14, not because it disappoints immediately, but because it reveals the difference between holiday beauty and everyday reality. It reminds buyers that some stones are chosen for a moment, while others are chosen for a lifetime. Ranked 13th, Mystic Topaz, the rainbow that didn't stay. Few gemstones feel more magical at Christmas than Mystic Topaz. Under holiday lights, it doesn't just sparkle, it performs. Ribbons of color glide across the surface. Purples, greens, blues, and golds shift with every movement. In a Christmas display, Mystic Topaz often outshines stones that cost far more. For many buyers, that moment is decisive. They aren't buying a gemstone, they're buying an experience. Mystic Topaz feels modern, futuristic, almost unreal. And during the holidays, when everything already feels heightened, that unreality feels perfectly in place. But Mystic Topaz carries a detail most buyers don't think about when emotions are high. Its beauty is not internal. Those shifting rainbow colors come from an ultra-thin surface coating, carefully applied to enhance light reflection. It's not hidden inside the stone. It lives on the outside, right where life happens. And Christmas doesn't test that. January does. Once worn regularly, Mystic Topaz begins to meet the real world. Skin contact, friction, cleaning cloths, rings knocking against surfaces, pendants brushing against fabric. Slowly, quietly, the coating begins to weaken. At first, it's subtle. One angle looks less vibrant. One edge doesn't flash the same way. The color shift feels incomplete. That's when many buyers experience a different kind of regret. Not sudden disappointment, but confusion. They start turning the stone under the light, trying to find the magic again. The memory of how it looked in December clashes with how it looks now. And that memory is powerful, because Mystic Topaz doesn't just lose color, it loses contrast. Without its full coating effect, the stone can appear flatter, more transparent, and less distinct. What once felt like a moving spectrum now feels like a reminder of something that used to be there. This regret isn't about damage. The stone hasn't failed. It's about longevity, and the expectation that a gemstone's beauty should age with the wearer, not away from them. Mystic topaz shines brightest in short-term moments, displays, photos, holiday gatherings. But many buyers didn't realize they were choosing a stone designed for visual impact, not endurance. And Christmas marketing rarely explains that difference. So mystic topaz often becomes a gemstone people still own, but stop wearing, not because it's broken, but because it no longer delivers the feeling that justified the purchase. Have you ever owned something that looked incredible at first, but slowly lost its impact over time? Comment "still wear it" or "stopped wearing it" below. Honest answers help others understand the difference between spectacle and sustainability. Mystic topaz earns its place at number 13 because it teaches one of the most important lessons in gemstone buying. Not every stone that dazzles in December is meant to be lived with all year long. Ranked 12th, Crackle quartz, the stone that sparkled because it was broken. Crackle quartz almost never looks ordinary at Christmas. Under holiday lights, it feels alive. Light scatters in every direction. Tiny flashes appear inside the stone, like frozen fireworks. In displays and gift boxes, Crackle quartz often looks far more complex than its price suggests. For many buyers, that complexity feels intentional, designed, artistic. They don't see fractures, they see character. Crackle quartz thrives in the holiday environment because Christmas lighting rewards internal chaos. Warm bulbs bounce off internal cracks, multiplying reflections and creating the illusion of depth. And in that moment, the stone feels expressive, almost emotional. But Crackle quartz carries a truth that doesn't reveal itself right away. Those cracks are real. They're created by heating the stone rapidly and then cooling it just as quickly, forcing fractures throughout the crystal. The process is controlled, intentional, and widely accepted. Nothing deceptive, nothing unsafe, but fractures change how a stone ages. After the holidays, Crackle quartz begins interacting with everyday life. Dust, skin oils, moisture, cleaning attempts. And unlike smooth quartz, those microscopic cracks don't let go easily. Over time, fine particles settle inside the fractures. The sparkle softens. The brightness dulls. What once looked lively begins to feel cloudy, not suddenly but gradually. This is where regret quietly forms. Buyers don't wake up unhappy. They simply notice they're reaching for the stone less often. Not because it's unattractive, but because it feels harder to maintain. Cleaning doesn't restore it fully. Polishing doesn't bring back the original intensity. The internal cracks that once felt festive now feel fragile. And that shift is emotional, because Crackle quartz isn't failing. It's behaving exactly as its structure dictates. But most buyers weren't choosing a structure. They were choosing a feeling amplified by Christmas light, gift excitement, and visual abundance. Once those factors disappear, the stone must rely on its long-term presence, and Crackle quartz struggles there. Many owners later describe it the same way. It still looks nice, just not like it did. That sentence appears again and again in buyer experiences. Not disappointment, not frustration, just quiet detachment. Crackle quartz earns its place at number 12 because it represents a specific kind of holiday regret. The regret of choosing visual drama over durability. It's a stone that performs beautifully in moments, but asks more from the owner over time than they expected. Have you ever owned something that looked better when it was new, but slowly lost its clarity no matter how carefully you cleaned it? Comment yes or never noticed below. Your answer helps others understand how time changes beauty. Crackle quartz isn't a mistake, but it is often misunderstood, and Christmas is exactly the season where misunderstandings feel like magic, until reality gently catches. Ranked 11th, dyed agate slices. The stone that was meant to be looked at, not lived with. Dyed agate slices are almost impossible to ignore at Christmas. They glow under holiday lights. Their colors feel festive. Reds, greens, blues, golds. Their natural banding looks artistic, almost intentional. Placed near ornaments, candles, and wrapped gifts, dyed agate slices feel less like gemstones and more like seasonal objects. They photograph beautifully. They decorate effortlessly. And during Christmas, they feel meaningful without asking much in return. That's why many buyers don't hesitate. They aren't imagining long-term wear. They aren't thinking about durability or versatility. They're responding to atmosphere. Dyed agate slices are often purchased as pendants, ornaments, desk stones, or statement pieces. The idea isn't ownership, it's presence. And during the holidays, presence feels enough. But regret doesn't arrive until buyers ask a quiet question. What do I do with this now? Once Christmas passes, dyed agate slices lose their context. Without lights, greenery, or seasonal decor, the stone suddenly feels oversized, loud, or out of place. The vibrant dye that felt joyful in December now feels difficult to integrate into everyday life. Many owners don't dislike the stone. They simply don't reach for it. That's the unique regret of dyed agate slices. Not disappointment, but displacement. Agate itself is stable and durable. There's nothing wrong with the stone. The regret comes from the way it was framed, as something to look at, not something to live with. Dye intensifies that effect. Brightly dyed agate slices are designed to be visually dominant. They demand attention. During Christmas, attention is abundant. After the holidays, attention is scarce. Suddenly, the stone feels like it's waiting for a moment that no longer exists. Many buyers later describe dyed agate slices as decor stones, items that move from gift box to shelf, from shelf to drawer. Not because they're fragile, not because they've lost color, but because their role was seasonal from the beginning. And Christmas marketing rarely makes that distinction clear. The stone wasn't bought to age. It wasn't bought to adapt. It was bought to match a moment. When that moment passes, the stone remains unchanged, while the owner's connection quietly fades. Do you own a gemstone or crystal that you love looking at, but never actually wear or use? Comment below with just one word. Wearable or decorative? There's no wrong answer, only different expectations. Dyed agate slices earn their place at number 11 because they reveal a specific kind of holiday regret, the regret of buying beauty without function. They remind us that some stones are perfect for a season, but not for a routine. And Christmas, more than any other time of year, blurs that line. Ranked 10th, Snowflake obsidian, the winter stone people loved, then stopped reaching for. Snowflake obsidian feels almost destined for Christmas. Black and white, quiet and dramatic. Its natural patterns resemble falling snow frozen in time. In December, it doesn't just look seasonal, it feels symbolic. Many buyers are drawn to Snowflake obsidian, not because of rarity or brilliance, but because of meaning. It's often associated with balance, grounding, and reflection. During the holidays, when emotions run deep and time feels reflective, that symbolism feels especially powerful. Snowflake obsidian is rarely an impulse purchase. It's chosen thoughtfully, intentionally, and that's what makes the regret so unexpected. During Christmas, the stone fits perfectly. It pairs with winter clothing, dark coats, soft lighting, and quiet moments. Worn or carried during the season, it feels aligned, almost poetic. But once the holidays pass, something subtle changes. Snowflake obsidian doesn't adapt easily to everyday life. Its stark contrast, which feels elegant in winter, can feel heavy or somber in spring and summer. The stone doesn't soften with sunlight. It doesn't shift in tone. It remains visually fixed to a season that has moved on. Many owners don't stop liking the stone. They stop choosing it. It becomes something they associate with December, not with daily wear. That's the unique regret Snowflake obsidian creates. Not because it disappoints in quality, not because it loses beauty, but because it becomes emotionally seasonal. Buyers didn't expect that. They believed they were choosing a timeless stone, one they could carry year-round. Instead, they discover a gemstone that feels deeply connected to a specific mood, time, and atmosphere. And once that atmosphere fades, so does the impulse to wear it. Snowflake obsidian teaches a quiet lesson about symbolism. A stone that carries strong seasonal meaning can be incredibly powerful, but only when the season aligns. Outside of that alignment, it can feel out of place, even if it's objectively beautiful. Christmas marketing rarely highlights that risk. The stone is presented as grounding, universal, protective. And those descriptions aren't wrong, but they overlook the role of context. In winter, snowflake obsidian feels complete. In summer, it can feel unresolved. Do you have a gemstone or accessory that you only wear during one season? Comment below with the season you associate it with most. Winter, spring, summer, fall. Your answers help show how emotion shapes our choices. Snowflake obsidian earns its place at number 10 because it reveals a form of regret that has nothing to do with price or quality and everything to do with timing. It reminds buyers that some stones don't fade. They simply wait for the right season to return. Ranked 9th, Opal doublet, the fire that looked eternal until it wasn't. Few gemstones feel as alive at Christmas as opal. Under holiday lights, even a small opal can look breathtaking. Colors ignite and disappear with movement. Reds, greens, flashes of blue that seem to breathe inside the stone. In December, opal doesn't just sparkle, it responds. That responsiveness is what makes opal doublets and triplets so tempting. At a fraction of the price of solid opal, these stones deliver dramatic fire. Set into rings or pendants, they feel generous. Almost too good to be true. And at Christmas, too good often feels like destiny. Most buyers don't realize they're choosing a layered stone. They're choosing the effect. An opal doublet is made by bonding a thin slice of natural opal to a darker backing. A triplet adds a clear cap on top, often glass or quartz, to enhance brightness and protect the surface. The construction is common, accepted, and clearly disclosed when buyers stop to ask. But Christmas isn't a season of questions. It's a season of impressions. And impressions are exactly what doublets and triplets are designed to deliver. The regret doesn't arrive immediately. It appears later, during everyday wear. Moisture exposure, temperature changes, cleaning, even time. Slowly, some buyers notice subtle changes. A faint line where layers meet, a loss of intensity. In some cases, separation begins. Not dramatically, but just enough to break the illusion. And illusion matters with opal because opal is bought for emotion, not logic. When that emotion weakens, the stone feels fragile in a way buyers didn't anticipate. This regret cuts deeper than simple disappointment. Buyers don't just think, this opal looks different. They think, did I misunderstand what I bought? That question lingers. Opal doublets and triplets aren't defective. They're simply more sensitive to environment and care than many buyers expect, especially those who believe they were purchasing a stone that would age effortlessly. Christmas marketing often emphasizes fire, color, and magic. It rarely emphasizes structure. So when reality sets in, the regret isn't loud. It's quiet. Owners begin wearing the piece less often. They worry about water. They hesitate during cleaning. The stone shifts from joy to caution, and once caution enters the relationship, the magic never fully returns. If you own opal, answer honestly. Do you wear it freely, or do you find yourself being careful with it? Comment carefree or careful below. Your experience might help someone choose differently. Opal doublets and triplets earn their place at number 9 because they represent a very specific Christmas regret. The regret of falling in love with an effect, without understanding the structure behind it. They remind buyers that beauty layered on top of beauty can still carry limits. And Christmas, more than any other time, makes those limits easy to overlook. Ranked 8th, color-enhanced blue topaz, the stone that felt rare until everyone had one. Clean lines, cool color, instant clarity. Some stones feel correct the moment you see them. Blue topaz often enters the picture that way during the holidays. Cool, clean, confident. Its icy blue tone pairs perfectly with winter colors, silver settings, and holiday displays. Under Christmas lighting, color-enhanced blue topaz often looks crisp and luminous, almost architectural. For many buyers, that clarity signals value. The stone feels modern, refined, safe, not flashy, not loud, just right. And because blue topaz is frequently presented in elegant packaging and upscale settings during the holidays, it often carries an unspoken promise. This is something special. That promise holds at first, but regret doesn't come from how blue topaz looks. It comes from how common it is. Color-enhanced blue topaz is one of the most widely available gemstones in the market. Treatments used to achieve its bright, consistent blue are standard, stable, and fully accepted within the industry. There's nothing misleading about the stone itself. The problem is perception. During Christmas, buyers experience blue topaz in isolation, one piece, one gift, one moment. Then January arrives. They notice the same stone everywhere, in department stores, in online listings, on coworkers, in jewelry ads. The uniqueness they felt in December quietly dissolves. And that's when the emotional regret appears. Not because the stone changed, but because the story around it did. Blue topaz didn't lose color. It didn't fade. It didn't wear poorly. It simply revealed its abundance. Many buyers later describe the same feeling. It's beautiful, but it doesn't feel special anymore. That sentence matters, because gemstones are rarely bought for function, they're bought for meaning. And when meaning weakens, attachment follows. Christmas marketing often emphasizes brightness, elegance, and universal appeal. What it doesn't emphasize is saturation, how widely available a stone truly is. Color-enhanced blue topaz thrives under controlled presentation. But outside that presentation, it blends into the background. For buyers who expected individuality, that blending feels like a loss. And unlike stones that fade or scratch, this regret is purely psychological, which makes it harder to articulate, but easier to feel. Have you ever owned something you loved until you started seeing it everywhere? Comment yes or no below. Your answer says more about value than price ever could. Color-enhanced blue topaz earns its place at number 8 because it highlights a quiet truth about holiday buying. A stone can be durable, beautiful, and well-made, and still leave buyers feeling underwhelmed. Not because it failed, but because it was never as rare as it felt in the moment. Ranked 7th, synthetic alexandrite. The color change. Everyone expected, but rarely saw. Few gemstones carry a promise as powerful as alexandrite, a stone that changes color, green by day, red by night. At Christmas, that promise feels irresistible. Under warm holiday lights, synthetic alexandrite often leans into deep purples, reds, and rich tones that feel dramatic and mysterious. In a gift box, it feels like you're giving not just a gemstone, but a phenomenon. And for many buyers, that phenomenon is the point. They imagine moments, stepping into sunlight and watching the stone transform, turning under evening light and seeing a second personality emerge. That expectation is strong and emotional. But this is where regret quietly enters. Synthetic alexandrite is real. Its color change effect is genuine, but the degree of change varies widely. Many affordable synthetic stones show subtle shifts rather than dramatic transformations. Instead of green to red, buyers may see blue to purple or teal to violet, changes that require specific lighting conditions to fully appear. Christmas lighting helps. Warm indoor bulbs exaggerate the red side of the spectrum. Displays are designed to showcase contrast. In that environment, the stone performs beautifully. Then January arrives, under office lighting, under overcast skies, under everyday conditions, and the change feels smaller. Not absent, just restrained. This is where expectation becomes disappointment. Buyers don't think this stone is fake. They think, I thought it would do more. That difference matters, because alexandrite is bought for its behavior, not its color alone. When the behavior doesn't match the imagined experience, the stone feels incomplete, even if it's technically doing exactly what it's capable of. Christmas marketing rarely explains this nuance. It celebrates transformation. It celebrates rarity. It celebrates magic. What it doesn't explain is context, how lighting, saturation, and price all influence what color change actually looks like in daily life. So many owners find themselves checking their stone repeatedly, tilting it, moving it, testing lights, trying to rediscover the moment they fell in love with. That effort is the regret, not frustration, not anger, just a quiet realization that the stone requires the right conditions to feel special. And life doesn't always provide those conditions. If you own a color-changed gemstone, answer honestly, do you notice the change naturally, or only when you look for it? Comment natural or only when I try below. Your answer helps others understand expectation versus experience. Synthetic alexandrite earns its place at number 7 because it represents a uniquely modern holiday regret. The regret of buying an experience that depends on circumstances. It reminds buyers that some gemstones don't reveal themselves freely. They ask for the right light, the right moment, and the right expectations. And Christmas, more than any other time of year, makes us believe those moments will happen more often than they do. Ranked 6th, Goldstone, the sparkle that felt too perfect to be true. Perfect sparkle has a strange effect on the human eye. When every point of light behaves exactly as expected, attention locks in. Goldstone was engineered to create that reaction, and it works especially well during the holidays. It glitters relentlessly. Every movement releases a shower of coppery sparks, perfectly even, perfectly controlled. Under holiday lights, Goldstone doesn't just shine, it overwhelms. For many buyers, that intensity feels luxurious. The stone looks expensive, it photographs beautifully, and in a season built around spectacle, Goldstone delivers exactly what the eye wants. Few people stop to ask questions. They don't ask how the sparkle is created. They don't ask why every piece looks almost identical. They're responding to sensation, and Goldstone is designed for sensation. Goldstone is a man-made glass infused with metallic particles, carefully cooled to create that signature glitter. The process is deliberate, precise, and skilled. There's nothing cheap about the craftsmanship, but Christmas doesn't reward craftsmanship, it rewards impact. And impact is where regret later begins. For many buyers, the realization comes quietly. They learn, sometimes weeks later, that Goldstone isn't a gemstone formed by geology or time, but a material created in controlled conditions. That knowledge doesn't make the stone less beautiful, but it changes how the beauty feels. What once seemed magical now feels engineered. What once felt rare now feels repeatable. What once felt organic now feels perfect. And perfection can be unsettling. Goldstone doesn't age. It doesn't change. It doesn't soften. The sparkle remains exactly as intense as the day it was bought. For some buyers, that constancy becomes the problem. Unlike natural stones, which develop small imperfections, surface wear, or emotional patina, Goldstone stays frozen in its original state. Over time, that unwavering brilliance can feel artificial, especially to buyers who value the idea of growth, aging, and uniqueness in what they wear. The regret here isn't about quality, it's about connection. Many owners later describe Goldstone the same way. It's beautiful, but it doesn't feel personal anymore. Christmas marketing rarely prepares buyers for that shift. The stone is often associated with ambition, energy, confidence, powerful ideas during the holidays. But those ideas assume an emotional bond that Goldstone doesn't always support long-term. Once the initial excitement fades, the sparkle can begin to feel louder than the meaning behind it, and slowly the stone moves from daily wear to occasional wear to display. Do you prefer gemstones that feel natural and imperfect, or stones that look flawless and controlled? Comment natural or perfect below. There's no wrong choice, only different expectations. Goldstone earns its place at number 6 because it represents a modern holiday regret. The realization that beauty without variation can feel distant over time. It reminds buyers that sparkle can attract attention, but meaning is what keeps us coming back. And Christmas, more than any other season, makes those two easy to confuse. Ranked 5th, low-grade ruby, the name that carried more weight than the stone. Some names arrive with meaning already attached. They don't need explanation. They carry history on their own. Ruby is one of those names, particularly in gift-giving season, status, timeless value. When buyers see ruby on a holiday tag, something emotional happens. The name feels heavy with meaning, heavier than the stone itself. It feels like a gift that says something important without needing explanation. And that's exactly why low-grade ruby sells so well in December. Under warm Christmas lighting, darker, opaque rubies often appear richer than they truly are. The red deepens. Inclusions soften. The stone feels bold and grounded, especially when set in gold-tone metals or festive packaging. In that moment, buyers aren't comparing clarity or transparency. They're responding to the idea of ruby. But regret doesn't come from damage or fading. It comes from comparison. After the holidays, many buyers begin noticing things they didn't see before. The stone doesn't glow, light doesn't travel through it. Instead of brilliance, there's density, a heaviness that feels more muted than majestic. This is when the name starts to work against the stone, because ruby carries expectations. Buyers expect internal fire. They expect a sense of depth. They expect life inside the red. Low-grade ruby often doesn't deliver that experience, not because it's inauthentic, but because it's structurally different from what people imagine when they hear the word ruby. Many affordable rubies are heavily included, opaque, or treated to improve color. All of this is standard and disclosed, but Christmas marketing doesn't dwell on structure. It dwells on symbolism. So when buyers later compare their ruby, consciously or subconsciously, to images of fine rubies they've seen in books, museums, or media, a quiet gap opens. This doesn't feel like what I thought ruby was. That sentence appears often, and that's the regret, not anger, not embarrassment, just a slow realization that the name promised more than the stone could give. Low-grade ruby doesn't fail as a gemstone. It fails as a symbol, and symbols matter deeply in gift-giving. Christmas purchases are rarely about geology. They're about message. When the message weakens over time, the stone becomes harder to connect with emotionally. Many owners still appreciate their ruby. They just stop reaching for it, because every time they do, the name whispers a comparison the stone can't win. Have you ever bought something mainly because of the name, and only later realized the experience didn't match what you imagined? Comment yes or no below. Your answer helps others understand how language shapes value. Low-grade ruby earns its place at number 5 because it reveals one of the most common holiday regrets, trusting the power of a name more than the reality of the stone. It reminds buyers that prestige doesn't live in labels. It lives in how something feels over time. And Christmas, more than any other season, teaches us how easily the two can be confused. Ranked 4th, treated emerald, the stone that needed more care than anyone expected. Green has always symbolized stability, renewal, continuity. That's why emerald feels like a safe emotional choice at the end of the year. Its green suggests renewal, stability, a kind of quiet luxury that doesn't need to prove itself. That's why emerald is often chosen as a meaningful gift, especially during the holidays when symbolism matters more than details. Under Christmas lighting, even heavily treated emeralds can look rich and composed. Inclusions soften. Color feels deeper. The stone appears calm and confident. For many buyers, that calm feels permanent. But emerald carries a reality that doesn't announce itself loudly. Most emeralds on the market are treated, commonly with oils or resins, to improve clarity. This practice is standard, accepted, and fully disclosed in the industry. It's not a flaw, it's a technique. The problem isn't the treatment, it's the expectation. Christmas buyers rarely imagine maintenance when they're choosing a gift. They imagine longevity. They imagine a stone that will simply be there, unchanged year after year. Treated emerald doesn't always behave that way. Over time, oils can dry, resins can shift. Exposure to heat, cleaning agents, or even routine wear can affect how the stone looks. Inclusions that once seemed faint become more visible. Clarity subtly decreases. Nothing dramatic happens. And that's what makes the regret so confusing. The stone doesn't break, it doesn't lose its color, it just requires attention. Many owners don't realize this until months later, when they notice the emerald looks slightly different from how they remember it. Less smooth, less unified, not worse, just changed. And change wasn't part of the emotional contract. Christmas marketing often presents emerald as a stone of permanence and resilience. The idea of periodic care, re-oiling, careful cleaning, avoidance of certain conditions, rarely enters the picture. So when buyers learn that emerald demands ongoing responsibility, the joy quietly shifts into vigilance. They start being careful, careful with water, careful with heat, careful with wear. And once careful replaces carefree, the relationship changes. This is the unique regret of treated emerald. Not regret of buying it, but regret of not knowing what came with it. Many owners still love their emerald. They simply don't wear it as freely as they imagine. It becomes a special occasion stone, not because of its value, but because of its vulnerability. If you own a gemstone that requires extra care, does that make it feel more special or more stressful? Comment special or stressful below. Both answers are more common than people admit. Treated emerald earns its place at number 4 because it reveals a form of Christmas regret rooted in responsibility. It reminds buyers that some stones don't just sit with us, they ask something from us. And Christmas, more than any other season, encourages us to focus on meaning, without always counting the cost of care. Ranked third, holiday color tourmaline. The stone that matched the season, not the year. Color can anchor emotion to a specific moment. When that color mirrors a celebration, the connection feels natural. Pink and green tourmaline quietly benefits from that alignment in December. Red and green aren't just festive, they're emotional. They signal celebration, generosity, and belonging. When those colors appear naturally inside a gemstone, the effect feels almost destined for the holidays. That's why pink and green tourmaline feels so perfect in December. The stone doesn't need explanation. It already matches the season. Under Christmas lighting, the contrast intensifies. The pink warms, the green deepens. Set in jewelry or shown in gift displays, the stone feels joyful, expressive, and unmistakably seasonal. For many buyers, that harmony feels meaningful. They aren't choosing tourmaline for rarity or investment. They're choosing it because it feels right. And during the holidays, feeling right is often enough. But regret arrives later, not because the stone changes, but because the calendar does. Once Christmas passes, the same color combination begins to feel less versatile. The festive contrast that once felt celebratory now feels specific. The stone doesn't blend easily with everyday wardrobes. It doesn't disappear into neutral settings. It announces itself. And for many owners, that announcement feels limiting. They didn't expect to own a gemstone that felt so strongly tied to a single mood. They imagined something expressive, yes, but adaptable. Instead, they discover a stone that feels emotionally anchored to December. This regret is subtle but persistent. The stone isn't unattractive. It isn't fragile. It isn't poorly made. It's simply hard to wear casually. Holiday-colored tourmaline often becomes a once-a-year piece, brought out in winter, then quietly stored away. Not because it lacks beauty, but because its beauty feels context-dependent, and context is everything in daily wear. Christmas marketing rarely acknowledges this limitation. The stone is framed as joyful, vibrant, and unique, all of which are true. But uniqueness can become a constraint when it's too closely tied to a specific moment. Many buyers later realize they purchased a gemstone that excelled at matching a season, not a lifestyle. That realization doesn't cause disappointment. It causes hesitation. They hesitate before wearing it, before pairing it, before choosing it over something simpler. And hesitation is where regret begins to settle. Do you own a gemstone or piece of jewelry that feels tied to a specific season or holiday? Comment below with the one you associate it with most. Christmas, summer, spring. Fall. Your answers help show how timing shapes attachment. Holiday color tourmaline earns its place at number 3 because it highlights a critical truth about Christmas buying. A stone that feels perfect for a moment may not feel right for everyday life. It reminds buyers that versatility often matters more than vibrancy, especially once the decorations come down. Ranked second, amber jewelry, the time capsule that couldn't handle daily life. Amber feels deeply human. It isn't just a gemstone, it's time itself, preserved. Ancient resin hardened over millions of years, often holding fragments of leaves, insects, or air from a vanished world. At Christmas, that story feels powerful. Amber doesn't sparkle aggressively, it glows. Under warm holiday lights, amber feels alive. Honey tones deepen, internal inclusions soften. The stone feels warm to the touch, almost comforting, like it carries memory rather than brilliance. That warmth is exactly why many buyers choose amber as a Christmas gift. It feels meaningful, personal, gentle. But regret doesn't come from how amber looks. It comes from how amber lives. Amber is soft, much softer than most people expect. It scratches easily. It reacts to heat, chemicals, and friction. Even everyday wear can leave marks that permanently change its surface. And Christmas doesn't reveal that. In December, amber is worn carefully, occasionally, gently. Then January arrives, and with it, routine. The necklace is worn more often. The ring brushes against surfaces. The bracelet meets sleeves, desks, and daily movement. That's when buyers notice something subtle but irreversible. Fine scratches appear. The polish dulls. The surface loses its glow. The stone still exists, but the feeling changes. Many owners describe the same moment, realizing they have to protect the amber instead of enjoy it. They become cautious. They start removing it before certain activities. They worry about contact. And once worry enters the relationship, the joy shifts. This regret isn't about fragility alone. It's about mismatch. Amber is often chosen for its emotional depth, for the idea that it connects past and present. But daily jewelry asks something different. Resilience. Christmas marketing rarely highlights that tension. Amber is presented as timeless, ancient, enduring. But endurance doesn't always mean durability. For many buyers, this realization arrives quietly. They don't stop loving amber. They stop wearing it. It becomes a special occasion piece, or a keepsake, or something stored safely, admired but untouched. And that's where the regret lives. Not in damage, not in disappointment, but in distance. If you own amber, be honest. Do you wear it freely, or do you feel the need to protect it? Comment, wear it, or protect it below. Your experience might help someone choose differently. Amber jewelry earns its place at number 2 because it represents one of the most emotional Christmas regrets of all. Choosing a stone for its story, only to discover that the story doesn't always fit everyday life. It reminds buyers that some treasures are meant to be preserved, not lived with constantly. And Christmas, more than any other time of year, makes that distinction easy to overlook. In first place, white topaz, the sparkle that promised too much. Comparison is one of the most powerful forces in buying decisions. When an object is framed next to something iconic, expectations shift instantly. White topaz enters the story through that comparison more than any other stone. It looks just like a diamond. White topaz is rarely sold on its own identity. It's sold as a substitute, a stand-in, a quieter way to say something expensive without saying it directly. Under Christmas lighting, white topaz performs beautifully. Warm bulbs increase contrast. Facets flash sharply. In display cases and gift boxes, the stone feels bright, clean, and convincing. For many buyers, it feels like a smart decision. Elegant, responsible, and emotionally satisfying. In that moment, white topaz doesn't feel like an alternative. It feels like a solution. But regret doesn't arrive on Christmas morning. It arrives when the comparison comes back. In daylight, in neutral lighting, in daily wear. White topaz has brilliance, but not fire. Light enters and exits cleanly, without the internal dispersion that gives diamonds their depth and complexity. The stone still sparkles, but the sparkle feels flatter, shorter, less layered. And that difference grows louder over time. Not because white topaz changes, but because expectation does. Buyers don't consciously think, this should be a diamond. They feel it. They notice the stone doesn't hold attention in the same way, that it photographs differently, that it feels less alive under certain angles. And because the stone was framed as a diamond alternative, the comparison never truly ends. That's the core regret. White topaz isn't disappointing as a gemstone. It's disappointing as a replacement. Christmas marketing often emphasizes similarity, diamond look, diamond style, diamond inspired. What it rarely emphasizes is performance. So buyers walk into January believing they chose something nearly equivalent, only to discover they chose something fundamentally different. This regret cuts deeper than the others on this list because it touches identity. White topaz is often bought to mark milestones, Commitment, celebration, significance. When the stone doesn't carry the emotional weight buyers expected, the disappointment feels personal, not financial. Many owners still like their white topaz. They just stop seeing it as what they hoped it would be. And slowly, silently, it becomes a reminder of a promise that was never quite fulfilled. If you've ever chosen an alternative to something iconic, not just gemstones, did it end up feeling freeing or limiting? Comment freeing or limiting below. Your answer closes this story better than any conclusion I could write. White topaz earns its place at number 1 because it represents the most common Christmas regret of all. Not buying the wrong thing, but buying something for what it was meant to replace instead of what it truly was. And that lesson doesn't just apply to gemstones. It applies to how we choose meaning, especially during the most emotional season of the year. The most valuable stones aren't the ones that imitate something else, but the ones that still feel right when no comparison is needed. Regret doesn't mean a gemstone was a mistake. It means it was chosen in a moment that didn't last. Christmas makes stones feel brighter, richer, and more meaningful than they really are. But the stones that matter most are the ones that still feel right after the lights are gone. If you've ever owned a gemstone that felt different over time, comment below. Thanks for watching. And remember, don't rush the stone that's meant to stay with you.